noon wrap-up session with Dr. Lavelle Hendricks.
Good. Thank you so much there, Dr. Thompson. And of course, to all of you, welcome back to our session here. And I'm sure that each of you learned a tremendous amount of information in the 6 wonderful breakout sessions that we had here. Our 6 moderators, they were selected because of their expertise in the various disciplines that we have here in the College of Education, of course, throughout the university. Each of the moderators now will provide some updated information and share with you some key points that were discussed during their breakout session. I want to encourage you again to use our hashtag TAMUC Educates. Again, that's hashtag TAMUC Educates. Our first moderator will be Dr. Elizabeth Rasheed, who will come and share with us. Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lavelle, for that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Rasheed. I'm an assistant professor right here at TAMUC in public health, and I was fortunate to moderate the Student Voices breakout session, and we had a fabulous panelist made up of 6 students that represent the various organizations here on campus, from SGA, NAACP, and so many others. And there was a lot that was talked about. And if you missed, you missed. And I know it was recorded, so be sure you tune in. But very briefly, some of the things that we talked about was truth is needed. Truth is needed to first acknowledge the problem and call the problem out as it is. They talked about truth being sugar-coated from what they learned in history classes. And with that, they challenged those that create curriculums and even academic courses to really be accurate in teaching history that is also comprehensive. And a quote that one of the panelists said was, when the victors tell the story, usually some aspects of the truth are not included in that. So it needs to be inclusive of everybody that makes up U.S. history. And also that Black Lives Matter or Black History Month is not just one day, that they live Black history. They live Black Lives Matter every single day. And the solutions, one I've already mentioned, is to speak truth, to teach truth. And once we get into these courses, once we get into academia, that we take on the challenge and the accountability to now educate ourselves, but also educate those around us. Let us learn about how the political system works, the importance of voting, and your role in creating social action by one being informed and then looking for opportunities to implement change in your everyday life. Some of the experiences mentioned was being, oh, you're Black, you're too pretty to be Black, or you're articulate, you're Black, or you're here, it must be a diversity card. And for those that acknowledge their white privilege, they said that we need to use the platforms, no matter how small or big, to call out the microaggressions that we see. And the challenge was, if you see wrong, call it out and challenge those around you to rewrite the rhetoric, to rewrite the narrative, and to also inform change. So all to say, it was truly a dynamic group of panelists and a great conversation. I want to thank everybody that has made it happen. And back to you, Lavelle. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Rasheed, for that wonderful update. Now I would like to call on my colleague and friend, Dr. Chris Simpson.
Thank you, Dr. Hendricks. First of all, I'm genuinely honored to be able to moderate the faith-based breakout session. We had 3 really dynamic presenters, Professor Glover, Dr. Lands, and Reverend DeSasa. Each one had many things to say. I found myself writing faster than I was comprehending what I was writing. There were many different things said. However, I would say that there were some themes that were consistent throughout the presentation amongst all of the presenters, which imagery is so important. There has been by all the speakers a sort of a dehumanization that has occurred by making many of the images that we have in churches of white imagery. but they also conclude that black imagery or of other color would not also be appropriate as well. It's really removing the imagery in some degree or another that can work it towards dehumanization. Professor Glover pointed out several things that were really quite important. He, by the way, also pointed out, he and Dr. Lands share the fact that they both are survivors of the Jim Crow era and pointed that out. The social gospel Dr. Glover pointed out that the social gospel goes beyond the pulpit. It's a moral voice. He talks about when he used to participate in marches, it was prayer and then protest and then prayer again. Just ends equals just means, and agape love towards our enemies is important. Dr. Lands went on to point out also that he was a survivor of the Jim Crow era, and pointed out that white supremacy or whiteness is a social construct that was put in place to dominate people of color. And then he comes back to, with that said, that the content of character is going to be more important than color of one's skin. He did point out an interesting piece of, going back to imagery, he pointed out an interesting piece of imagery that as he says, I quote, "In the Last Supper, there wasn't even a black busboy. There were no blacks in there. The imagery is so important, and the decommissioning of the white imagery is going to be important moving forward." And he also points out another fact, that religion was not brought to Africa, but in fact came from Africa. And sorry, I'm trying to move through a few things here. So many other important things. And then Reverend DeSasa brought us, start off with a couple of really salient quotes, one of which is in regards to Black Lives Matter. In talking about the church, Black Lives Matter has forced the church to move beyond an easy rhetoric of togetherness. Austin Channing Brown made this statement. Reverend DeSasa points out that this was kind of a catharsis for the church. That in fact the church itself was really unprepared for what happened, not only the day that George Floyd was murdered, but also so many other catastrophes and atrocities that have occurred to people of color, and that we have to move beyond sort of that rhetoric of togetherness. Another quote that he pointed out that was really salient. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we can log off of here.
I think the church in America partakes of well, I'm sorry, I better move. The author of this quote, which I managed to not write down, but it's pretty useful. In the churches, when the pulpit it begins to echo that of the pew, it loses almost all of its reasons for existence. It was a meaningful and fantastic breakout session, and I'm sorry you all missed it. Thank you all for listening to these statements, and congratulations to those who also were part of the other breakouts.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Chris Simpson. Now I'd like to call on my colleague, Dr. Babino, who will come and share with us from her breakout session. Dr. Babino.
Thank you, Dr. Hendricks. I was the moderator for the education breakout session, and we had the esteemed Dr. Ford, as well as Dr. Lathan, Darlene Bro, and Michelle McKinley. Some of the highlights of our time together: Dr. Ford reminded us about the equity issues at the core of gifted education. In particular, that white teachers serve as gatekeepers to gifted education for our students. And as a result, we need new processes and testing that are not culturally or linguistically biased. Dr. Lathan then continued that even with these issues in education, she believes that education is the key, and educators can hurt or they can help. And so we desperately need to work together to have not just culturally responsive teaching, but to have anti-racist teaching as well, not just in name, but in everyday practice. Then Darlene Bro talked about the specific policy actions we can take at each level, focusing on what we can do at the local level of our school boards and our districts. Last but not least, Ms. Michelle McKinley talked about her work as a special education advocate and how our field over the past decades has not closed the achievement gap because students are qualifying for illegitimate reasons. Students are qualifying for special education as a result of their language or as a result of their different culture, rather than legitimate needs of learning differences. And so the major takeaway was that we can't be silent. We must speak up. We can't be fearful or acquiescent, but rather we need to clearly act with culturally relevant pedagogy in our teaching and in our assessments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pavino. I want to encourage also my fellow moderators, if you could, please, to mute your mics as well. Dr. DeMarcus Hayes, if you would come forward, please.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed your time in these sessions. We've had a great time. We were in the mental health breakout session. Dr. Charles Barrett, Dr. Yuma Toombs, great presenters, and my co-moderator was Dr. Aaron Harper from here, A&M Commerce with myself. So in the mental health section, we kind of addressed 4 broad issues. Time permitting, we didn't get through everything, but we got to have a lot of good questions. One of the first issues that we discussed was, what does it actually mean to be Black in America? And the big takeaway point from that is we're not a monolithic group. We had a great discussion about how some people say African-American, Black, Jamaican-American, this, that, and the other. So we had a really great conversation. That conversation led to others about how do we view ourselves as individuals under this umbrella of being Black/African-American. That's a great question about our LGBTQI brothers and sisters who also are parts of our Black Lives Movement, are part of the Black community, but also feel discriminated against. Dr. Toombs gave a great example of, there was a march, a transgendered woman was in the march. When individuals found out that this was a transgendered woman, they attacked her. And so we're in the midst of us protesting against this common theme. I'm also being discriminated in the midst of this. So that deals with a lot of our mental health issues in our kids, and we just address a lot of things of what we can do as individuals, whether we're parents, mental health workers, work in schools, or what have you. One of the biggest issues that we discuss is, how can I, as a non-Black person, help contribute to better access to mental health resources for our kids? We had one person say, hey, I'm a social worker, or do you think we should have more social workers in schools? Should we have this in schools? Our biggest point is we need more mental health workers, period, in our school, whether you're a school psychologist, a social worker, a counselor. If you're here to help the kids, that's what we need. We need individuals to be brave on the front lines, to realize that all people have mental health issues, and it's not a weakness on your part to say, I need help. We provided several links to resources. I'm sure if others who didn't attend, we can make those links available as well for you all. PowerPoint slides, whatever we have, we'll make that available. But making sure that, number one, you build a coalition. We talked about it's difficult to do it on your own. And the grassroots thing is saying, hey, who else agrees with you? Can we find common ground? Can we find partners to help address these issues in our schools, whether it's the curriculum, which should be diverse, and we talked about that. Starting at an early age, we did talk about using age-appropriate images, age-appropriate conversations. It's never too early to start talking about race and discrimination, because one question was, should I wait till an incident happened? Dr. Barrett said, I don't agree with that statement, because it's almost like if I don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And we know it does exist. So helping our kids at an early age realize that this is how things are and how we can help change and be advocates. So in a nutshell, we kind of covered those issues and more. Again, I think the recordings will be made available, and if you need anything, I'll be happy to share.
Thank you so much, Dr. DeMarcus Hayes. Dr. Zhang, if you would come forward, please. Dr. Zhang.
Thank you, Dr. Hendricks. And I just come from the breakout section of law enforcement, and we have 4 panelists in our session. And we have Judge Teskey, and he's the presiding judge in the Juvenile Justice Court in Georgia. And we have Mr. A.J. Crabio, and he's the former commissioner of Texas Educational Agency. And we have Mr. Ratramo. He's the CEO of Texas Revision, a nonprofit organization that helps the kids of color who's at risk. And also we have Mr. Turner, Joe Turner. He's the fraud investigation police officer in North Carolina. And what they talk a lot about during this breakout session, we saw the clash between white police and Black people and the reality, the cruel reality that is happening in our society in the past time, even in the current time. And we also see all of the efforts and hope made from, for example, Mr. Ratramo on what they do to offer support, to offer extra resources to help the kids to handle the challenges in the current situation. And Mr. Crabble shared his personal experience growing out as a kid of color, and his personal and his compelling experience that has been mistreated in various occasions, and how he turned his past negative experience into the position he's holding right now that will fight for the rights, the equality rights of the kids nowadays. And also Judge Teskey talk about how he used all his expertise and resources to build school justice partnership model to promote school climate. I think that's very important. That is the hope we saw in our breakout section. And he mentioned about, he made us to realize that the effort of our individual parts, when united, that's when we can solve the power, we can see the power of the work, so we can make some changes. And also Mr. Joe Turner shared his experience and his witness. He told us about the stories of his white colleague and Black colleague, and how important it is to build relationship between police and community. So overall, our session takeaway is that racism, especially the systemic racism, is not really a you and me individual challenge or problem. And it takes united actions of all parts to fight for equity. I think what we're doing right now is hopefully that can make some changes. And in higher education here, we have to work on, for example, the multicultural. We have to work on we have to make sure we serve students of all race, color, religion, gender, sexuality, so we can serve our students and the larger community as well. Thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Jang, for the update and the summary. Dr. Kelly Carrero, if you would come forward, please. Well, Dr. Jang, we recognize that you're not Dr. Kelly Carrero. I just had a minor technical glitch, but we are looking for Dr. Kelly Carrero, if you would come, please. Okay, well, thank you so much. I guess Dr. Carrero got called away and she's not able to join us. I'm sure we have a little technical difficulties there, but we'll swing back over, and I will again want to thank all of our panelists for today. We want to thank all of our moderators for doing such an exceptional job as well. You can find more information about all of our guest speakers today, as well as our symposium, if you would go to tamuc.edu/truth. Again, if you want to find more information about our panelists and all of our moderators, that's at tamuc.edu/truth. We also want to remind all of you to use the hashtag TAMUC educates. Again, that's TAMUC educates. Again, this symposium was put together by various individuals across the university campus, and I would be terribly remiss in my final few words if I did not thank Dr. Juan Araujo, Dr. Clay Bolton, Dr. Joyce Millers. All these are professors here at the university. Dr. Marta Sierra, Dr. Karen Carrero, Dr. Josh Thompson, Dr. Edith Gonzalez, Dr. Amber Castleberry, Dr. Alexandra Babino, Dr. Laura Slade, Dr. Julia Ballinger, Dr. DeMarcus Hayes, Dr. Chris Simpson, Dr. Madeline Justice, Dr. Sherry Harwell, Dr. Erica Smith, Julia Crump, Dr. Aaron Harper, and of course, we want to thank also Dr. Mel Lang. And of course, our IT department, I appreciate very much the work that Jeff Fonts from our IT department, who has been here working with us to ensure that we would have no major headaches or major issues throughout the entire process. So again, we're very thankful for all of these individuals that worked along with us. Dr. Demetra Smith, Dr. Tammy Martin, Dr. Aaron Harper, Dr. Elizabeth Rasheed, Dr. Tony Lee, Dr. Jang as well. All of these individuals played a critical role in making this happen. And again, to the co-host who has been behind the scene, doing everything, Sherry Harwell, thank you so much. This university, this college is deeply indebted to the tremendous amount of work that you're doing. She did not want to come forward to be on the camera, but she did an excellent job. And then lastly, to Dr. Kimberly McLeod, the Dean of the College of Education and Human Services, our visionary leader, the one who had the brain trust for this wonderful symposium. Thank you for being such a visionary leaders and bringing all of our colleagues together to make this happen. Again, thank you so much. And now I will have the final words coming to us by Dr. Kimberly McLeod. Dr. Yang, if you just mute yourself, if you would, please.
Dr. Hendricks? Dr. Carrero is on the line now, and so I'm going to give her a chance to close out that session. It was a powerful session with elected officials. So, Dr. Carrero, I will follow after your remarks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you all hanging in with me while I try to get the technology under control. And I'm really glad I'm able to speak to you all now because I did have a very powerful panel. I got the opportunity to work with the elected officials and public policy panel, and we had three amazing esteemed guests who represent each one of us if you are living in the state of Texas and in this area. We had Senator Royce West. He is the Texas State Senator representing District 23, Dallas County. You can look up his bio. We had Miss Aisha Davis, who is a member of the Texas State Board of Education. And we also had Mr. Taiji Jones, who's a member of Lancaster ISD Board of Trustees, and he's also on multiple leadership positions on multiple professional associations, both regionally and nationally. What was really so exciting, I believe, about our panel was we were in the presence of three servant leaders who are citizens who took it upon themselves to enter into a sphere of influence so they could really advocate for citizens. And I felt really empowered, and I hope the participants also felt very empowered from our panelists, learning how we also could get engaged in advocacy efforts, specifically within the sphere of education. That was the focus of today. It was really great. We spoke about very specific actionable ways that citizens and participants could be involved, for example. And this is something, I am a professor of education, right? I should know this, but Miss Aisha Davis mentioned that, in 2023, we're going to have curriculum changes where we talk about how all of the students in the state of Texas will learn about history. Well, this is something that citizens can be a part of. So we can exercise our agency as citizens and make sure that all of our children are represented in that history and all of our histories are told and taught. I think that's what we need to have a better community for all of our children, right? Mr. Taiji Jones, he has written a fantastic book where he talks about being in a position of educational leadership and what it looks like to be.
Kelly, we lost your sound. I can't hear you.
Yes, Dr. Carrero, we lost your volume.
Okay, I will,
Yes.
and for the sake of time, I'll close for Dr. Carrero. Dr. Carrero and Dr. Demetria Smith led, as she was saying, an absolutely incredible session. One of the things, as she was probably preparing to say in closing, was all of the elected officials and public policy leaders invited and shared how we can insert and give voice and opinion and input on how things are going to be shaped before they become policy. And so thank you, Dr. Carrero and Dr. Smith, for leading that panel. And as we prepare to close and adjourn, I just want to say that I started at Texas A&M University-Commerce as Dean May 1st, and it has been an incredible ride. Some of the things at our College of Education we plan on doing moving forward. Right now, we have initiatives that we will grow into centers. And one of those initiatives is creating cultural equity and excellence and what that looks like. And part of the donation from Frank and Rosalie Turner in that endowment will support that work and that growth perpetually. We also are looking at creating an urban and rural leadership pipeline to train those that will be leading our schools, leading our school districts, leading our communities, empowering them with a network, the mindset, as well as the academic tools that they need to navigate successfully, to create opportunity and success for all of the stakeholders in their community. The other center that we're going to work on, which is an initiative now, is creating a master teacher pipeline, those that just want to master the craft of delivering pedagogy, and how to work with not just students that are part of the, I guess, the large part of the bell curve, but those that are on the tail end are exceptional children, whether they be gifted, learning different, dyslexic, autistic. How do we ensure that as teachers, we know how to deliver educational opportunities for every single stakeholder? And lastly, we're going to look at how we can create a center that focuses on public policy and leadership, how we can give input, how we can give voice, how we can give support to those that are creating policy, voting on policy, how our voice, how our research can help support and drive what that looks like for our communities. Those are the 4 areas that we are going to be looking at, in addition to raising a significant amount of external funds and certificate programs to help fuel that. We also, as a college, are working on innovating our programming, and this is what we are doing actively and aggressively right now, fine-tuning our courses. How are our courses relevant to the workforce? How are our degrees relevant to the workforce? How are we creating agility for our prospective students? So all of those things we're working on right now. We just started our engines. We are just warming up. This is our first entry on a national platform to share all of that. There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. Well, this is the village. This is our community. This is our culture. This is our opportunity to create access and equity and life fulfillment for every single individual. I talked to you about Maya Angelou earlier on when she said, I know why the caged bird sings. He sings because he has a song, not the answer, but a song. And this symposium is not the answer, but it is our song. Our silence is just as powerful as our voice, and we should use our voice to create flight for all caged birds. I'll close with James Baldwin's quote when he said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced, and that is what the truth sounds like." Thank you for joining us for this free opportunity. We hope that we can continue to provide resources, to provide support, to provide an opportunity to elevate, educate, and inspire our learning community and those that are leading it. I would be remiss to tell you if I didn't share with you that we have a world-class faculty and we have faculty positions that are open. We encourage you that if you have the background and the desire to apply, but if you can't teach with us, we encourage you to learn from us. Learn at Texas A&M University, get a world-class education, and now is the time to seize the moment. I am the Dean for the College of Education and Human Services, Kimberly McLeod. I, along with the Planning Committee, we thank you for your time and your service, and I will turn it back to Dr. Hendricks to close us out.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. McLeod. Again, we want to thank all of our participants for joining us on this day. I'll be terribly remiss also if we did not thank Lisa Martinez, the Texas A&M University system, for working along with us, ensuring that we could use Platform Q. Ryan, thank you for your help as well. To all of you, again, have a great afternoon and look for exciting things coming again from Texas A&M University-Commerce.